Dumelang and bonjour. Welcome back to SECHABA. Are You Listening? Our podcast with the French Embassy about women's issues and what we're facing, where we're going, how are we going to do these things. Today, I still have my very, very favorite bro, TK. What's up, bro?
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Okay, thank you for being here again, TK. And then I have another very special guest, Miss RICKI TSHEPO. Hi, Ricky.
Hi there, how are you?
Thank you for being here. Today we are going to be discussing gender roles. Where exactly do you fit as a woman at home? Where does your partner fit? Where does your dad fit? Your brother, your male cousin, your female cousin? I was raised by a man. So in as much as he tried to make sure I understood like what it meant to be a woman traditionally, it was kind of difficult to get fully girly and get that feeling of womanhood. So as I navigated the world, I never really wanted those things that other women want. I didn't want Barbie dolls. I didn't want marriage. I mean, I'm not saying I won't get married, but it's just not important. Kids are not important. My career, my lifestyle, those things are important. And I wonder, what about the other women in Botswana? Do you guys also think, no, your place is at home? Or do you believe that you should have a corporate lifestyle and a home lifestyle? Are you a bit like me and you think, Bonara, we eat together, we live together, we sleep in this house together. Therefore, you're going to clean too. You're going to cook too. You're going to learn to wash some dishes. And Linna, I'm going to learn how to mow the lawn. I'm going to learn how to garden and all those nice things. But yeah, that's the point of today's conversation. And to get us kicked off, I'd like to ask you, Ricky, so that people know you.
Yeah.
Who are you and what do you do for a living?
My word, that's a loaded question. When I saw it, I was like, how do I make this fit within the time frame? But my name's Tshepo, RICKI TSHEPO.
Okay.
And I'm a somewhat young Botswana woman who was born and raised in Botswana, and then born into a family, Ep7 farms that are just pure Barolong, who are just humble people. I think one of the things that people will most likely remember me for, probably for the rest of my life and beyond, is a milestone that I achieved in 2017, where I took the government of Botswana to court in 2011, seeking legal gender recognition and gender marker change at the time. Additionally to that was also this constitutional interpretation that we sought from the court on reading the rights of people who are transgender, and that's what I identify as. I'm a woman who's got a transgender background. And given that, it became what then really was, I think, a culmination of everything that my family had raised me to be. Like you're saying, I also was raised in a very sort of normative kind of family. There were things that boys were to do and there were things that were meant for girls to do at home. And then you can only imagine a kid like me who was born transgender to a family that had no idea about anything called trans when I was growing up. And just seeing this little thing that was supposed to be a boy that was just continuously growing into a girl and trying to make sense of the world around it. And them trying to love me the best way that they could, which they really did. I think I need to be honest about that one. I was loved, I was affirmed. I grew up in the middle of like 3 brothers, an older brother and 2 younger brothers, as an only girl. So
cool.
there is a dynamic there as well where my navigation of finding my own gender and the kind of space I occupy was always just what was a back and forth between this male-dominated environment I grew up in.
Yeah.
If you could see me growing up, you'd see it's such a tomboy. Because then I didn't, for me, to be honest, I started liking dresses and girly things probably going into junior high.
Okay.
But the bulk of my primary, I enjoyed dressing up like the boys. Like I didn't have a problem with it, except where I was forced into really masculine kind of clothing where they started trying to also mold me into a boy. That's where now the conflict between me and my environment really began. Because I think as early on as like 3 years, I remember very well, even my older brother narrates how he says he always knew I was a girl because of how I behaved next to him. So it's those things where when I was growing up, I remember in crash first year, and we were told boys go to the toilet at this time, girls go to the toilet at this time, because then it was like probably 30 or 40 of us kids in the whole entire class. So there was just this kind of rationing of boys' toilet time, girls' toilet time. So naive me growing up in Barolong Farms, where nobody ever corrected me until I got into crash, I was told that you can't go to the toilet when the girls are going to the toilet, and you can't go into the toilet, you must go and stand and pee, which did not make sense to my brain. So in that time, I think that's the point where I began really asking myself, exactly what am I? Because I'm being told I'm not a girl when I see myself as a girl, but then I'm told I'm a boy and I don't feel or see myself as a boy. There were things that boys did that just didn't make sense to my brain. For instance, instead of going to a toilet, they would go towards the back of our class, and then they had a pee game and they would shoot that pee over the wall. I pity the people who live behind our school, because I can only imagine it smelled horrible from these little kids' pee. So they once invited me to have to do this with them, because every single time they noticed that I would never go and stand with them. So it became a thing of, but okay, I don't fit with them. I know I fit with them, but then I'm told I'm not one of them, I'm one of those ones. That confused kind of messaging that came to me became something that then I had to ask myself a question of, but what am I? So you can imagine I was born like in 1987. So by the time I got to crash around 1991, there was no trans literature. Even LGBTI literature itself was very limited. Probably what you would find around that time would be on gay people's rights or even lesbians. But ideally on trans, you didn't have anything. It would take me up until 2004, when I was in Form 4 at the time, that I would know what trans was, having watched Oprah Winfrey's show at the time, where there was this little kid who came with his mom and dad, and then they were talking about how he was born a girl. But then he was almost like 7. He was still like a real toddler, jumping up and down on Oprah's couch and everything. So he was being so boisterous. And then this term came that they said he is transgender. So he's a transgender kid who they're waiting to grow up, and then he's going to go on puberty blockers so that then his body does not become female.
Oh, female.
Yeah, because they had been born female assigned, but he was raised as a boy. So they were talking about all of this, and that's when I heard terms like gender dysphoria, gender identity disorder, transsexualism. At the time they called it sex reassignment surgery. We now know you don't change somebody's sex. So it was the kind of literature that existed and the knowledge that existed. But it helped really quite a lot at the time, because in Form 4 was when now I got to answer this question of who and what am I? Which I would have loved to even get. When you say to me, I often say who and what am I? Because firstly, I'm who as a person, and then I'm a what in terms of the kind of space I occupy, that being a trans kind of experience that I carry and embody. So it's in answering that question in Form 4 that then I started understanding, oh, so this is what people like me are like. And mind you, I had never at that point in time seen another trans person, let alone a black trans person. So it had been just this little kid. And then I started doing my own research at the time. And in so doing, I then, because my mom had supported my dream to study medicine from childhood. So I had these medical journals that allowed me then to go and just bookmark certain pages that had sex reassignment surgery on it and gender identity disorder.
Oh, that's very cool.
So my mom got back from work. She was incredible. She still is to this day. And then I called a little meeting. We sat just like this, because my mom has always had this direct conversations with us, because we went through quite a lot as a family growing up. She got divorced when I was probably like 8, 9, to my stepdad, who's the dad to my 2 younger brothers. So from then on, my mother had this very open kind of space for us to talk about anything. So it's when then she got back from work that day, I remember, and then I was like, I think it was like in the first term of Form 4. It was very early on when I just got into high school. And then we sat down and I told her, I then gave her, I'm like, Mama, like, can you please read? And then she read. And then she closed, she paused there. And we're watching TV at this point in time. It's after dinner and everybody's just sitting in the lounge and we're watching TV.
After work.
Exactly. So we're all chill. So we're all there. Like my older brother was there. My 2 younger brothers were there. A sister cousin of mine, her and I are the same age. We call each other twin. So twin was also there at the time. And then my mom was there. So everybody's just sitting and we're just watching TV. So I gave it to her. So I'm waiting for some ceremonious reaction.
like, oh, alright.
Like get mad, something. No, the woman just went a total opposite direction.
Oh, that is so
and she
cool.
put the journal down and she's like, okay, I'm and watch TV. And then a bit of an awkward silence. I'm like, and is that it? It's like,
Yeah, like what more do
we've
you want?
always
Like,
known. I'm like, yeah, but we've never known what this is exactly. Now we know there's something.
Yeah.
And I'm talking in the backdrop of my mother having spoken to some of these social workers because she works for the city council. She's about 5 years away from retirement now. And she already was speaking to some friends of hers. Kana, I've got this child, Batung. I'm trying to put him into boys' clothes. Wahana, she cries all the time. And it becomes like a whole entire spectacle. Especially, I remember it would be on your Sundays going to church. Because my mother, we were born into the Methodist church, which is the church of home for my mother. And then when she got married, because then I was like 3 years at the time she got married to my stepdad. At the time, then she had to convert into his belief, which was the Old Apostolic Church of Africa. So if you've ever seen them, people call them brother and sister or pula mulenza. They wear all white, and then men or boys will be in a suit and a tie. No matter how young you are, you're just made to look this formal.
I found that really cool. I mean, it's a bit disturbing, but at the same time, it's like,
there's something beautiful about it.
Y'all look good.
And they sing incredible.
Yes.
My goodness, those people's choirs are absolutely insane. Partly why I can conduct actually because of that background. But it was because of that kind of that gendered uniform of theirs that did not have any kind of navigation for a child who was born like me. So my mother, the only thing that she knew was that it's a boy, it must wear a suit to church. And now, come Sunday, my brothers don't have a problem. They'll put on their suits and they're ready to go. Problem will be that Tshepo is crying her eyes out. She refuses to leave because she's put in a suit. Or else I'm forced to have to go. I am sulking the whole entire time. I get to church and it's sear. It's absolutely sour. So it's that my mother started realizing something is just amiss.
Different.
It's really not what I'm used to, and I just need to figure out. So my mom then started seeing some social workers. So only now at this point in Form 4, I'm telling her that, woman, you can say we've always known, but now we know. You've been the person trying to figure out what's going on. Now we have a label to it. And that's where then the whole entire process began for us as a family, where my mom then was like, okay, so it means we need to figure out how you're going to do this surgery. So my family originally, they're from the Northwest, Komahikeng. That's where Bumama Kobatswankoting. So I have an aunt who's in Joburg. At the time I was in Form 4, my mother was like, you're not going to stop having to complete your high school because of this thing. I now know we will figure it out. Let me talk to your aunt Oslami, and then we figure out, can you be able to do this at least in SA when now you go into university. So that's how then the push happened for me to go and study in SA, and I ended up at Monash in Joburg. And it was because of that, because my mother was just, for me, excitable at the time. I was just like, I finished high school, can we give me a gap year? Other kids were talking about the gap year. I'm like, the gap year we go, we do this. So in my little naive kind of mind as a kid, I'm just so excitable at the fact that now we know there's something that can be done to be able to get rid of this thing that I don't understand what it's doing between my legs. So thank you, can we get it done over and with? And then it would take some couple of years. Obviously, it's a very expensive process and procedure.
It's not a one-size-fits-all.
Not
go
at
through
all.
steps
Exactly.
one by one.
And it's not as if you can just easily get any kind of medical cover for it. Even now, it's still something that we're struggling quite a lot for. No, there's no health insurance that covers it.
Media and others. I'm not trying to call
no, but we need to call them out.
No, I mean in the sense that I'm not saying just Bomid, but all of
all
you guys,
medical
Kula,
aids, health insurance. It's terrible, the
it's
exorbitant cost of gender affirmation processes and surgery, and even hormonal treatment that is a lifelong commitment, because then when your body does not produce for to be specific, it doesn't produce too much of estrogen enough to be able to sustain itself and how it looks. So on a monthly basis, I definitely have to have my estrogen therapy. So, and that's a lifelong commitment, because your body can't be without any of its androgens or any of the hormones in it.
That's very true.
Yeah. but then it comes out of pocket. So that's when we only began now to know when I was getting into university. So I go to Monash, I get to Joburg, and then we start now doing this research. This is now 2007, and I get into first year. So by first year is when now I started seeing a psychologist, because at the time the requisites were just really insane for you to just ultimately be able to get onto hormones and to be able to have surgery. You needed to go through a counselor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist first,
I think I'd
who
heard
would
that
be able to
before.
give you like a medical report or something. So it's how, when we answer the other end of the question of what I do, this is how what I do began to begin itself. Literally, I'm now in university, first year, and I am the first year student to be elected into the SRC. Usually people go into the SRC on year 2. That's what I understood.
I can see the
So
trajectory. I
it
can
was
see
like,
it.
okay, I start off as an arts and culture officer within the SRC at the time. And by that time, we were found in the Monash Choristers, which is a choir, because I come from a very strong musical background within the church specifically.
Yes.
So there was that I needed a little bit. Monash was a bit dry at the time that we got there, so you
but-
kind of needed to figure out for
I
yourself
knew
what you...
people at Monash and they made it sound like it was a
cool.
You all lied to me.
Maybe it
Yeah.
started popping when we
Literally.
all got into the SRC, because I remember we had our freshers balls, or our O parties as they were called, the orientation parties. And then we had the Monash annual fashion show that I remember in first year we brought in David Tlale, who I brought in for the fashion show, and he brought the whole entire ensemble there. And you can imagine in 07 when he began, it was like the most amazing thing. But then imagine all of that is happening, and then my actual physical transition is beginning.
Oh, wow.
So I had been now in counseling at that point, and then I'm now certified to go on to hormonal therapy. So I start my estrogen therapy. So obviously my body starts changing in pump kwabantu, like it's just in everybody's faces.
Look at me
So
now.
you're like, you can't necessarily hide your transition when you're in the SRC.
Yes.
Especially for a university that was as small as
Small,
ours.
yeah.
It's not those large ones, your VIS, your UJ, where you can literally just bump into your SRC members and you wouldn't even know that they are unless you have studied the whole entire calendar
It's
to
one
know
of
who it
these
is in the
niche
cabinet.
bespoke ones.
Yeah, so in my case, there was no hiding that.
Wow.
The Monash Choristers was doing very well. I was a part of the debating team that was our national team. It was one of those where there was no way of hiding myself.
Oh, wow.
So I then realized in that time that there was no way of hiding. I needed to be vocal and I needed to own my narrative. Because then obviously there began little whispers within the grapevine, as it's often
whispers
said.
always.
They reached the people. So it became a thing of you're going to keep on dodging and dilly-dallying around this, or you just face it on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Monash had the Mo magazine before we had Mo TV and
Okay.
Mo radio. So Mo magazine at the time, we're like, we want to offer you an opportunity for a platform like this.
Yeah,
Can you,
let the people
do you
know.
care to have an interview with us so we have a conversation, because you apparently are the most famous of all the SRC members, and it's because of this particular thing. So let's have the conversation.
Yeah.
So I did. I opened up myself at the time to just have a candid conversation like this.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
at that very point where I began to realize the power of just owning your voice, owning your narrative. Because with that, it influenced even a lot of the anti-bullying protocols that Monash adopted, because there wasn't any kind of protections for LGBTI persons who are on campus. So you
wow,
could easily
okay.
just have somebody say whatever they wanted to say about you. And more especially, you imagine, as there was on a cohort of students that went to Monash, some of us were coming from all sorts of different backgrounds. So some were not even exposed to diversity in that way.
Yeah,
So there were certain hurtful words that you would make their way to me. And in the minute I began having that conversation, management within the university began to realize, oopsie. I didn't realize. And then the pro-vice chancellor at the time invites me to his office. He's like, I know what you're going through. I read your article on Mo magazine.
Yeah.
How can we make it a safer space for you?
Oh, okay.
And that's how then it
We
began.
like that.
At the
We
time,
like
it was
that.
almost like they're talking about RICKI TSHEPO in her individuality. So at the time, then I started having the conversation with them that it shouldn't just be about me protecting me alone as
should be
a
about
trans person
everybody
who's
else.
open within the campus, but everybody else who is different.
Yeah,
So that's why we
yeah.
started now having to have these management meetings and workshops that were around how do we develop a really really comprehensive protective kind of protocol for the university.
Okay, all right.
And I didn't realize I was continuously fortifying my position in the SRC because I would be in it up until like I was in third year. By fourth year, I was like, no, there's no way. I just need to make sure that I complete. And it was quite a very rigorous kind of final year. So by third year, then I was like, I'll hand over the baton. But in that time, having really, really done quite a lot in terms of developing a very safe environment that really appreciated all of that diversity. So it became a thing that was setting me up for what ultimately my call was to really become in life. Because I studied international human rights law with Manaj, looking at human rights dispensation, protection and proliferation. So in so doing, I wasn't realizing that God was continuously shaping this advocate in me for those that are on the margins. So that's how then, ideally, by the time I then graduated, got back to Botswana, looking for a job, and it became difficult. I had lost my ID card, Omang, because in SA I didn't use it. So it was with someone, it was in a little file that had my certificates.
But now you don't really look like the person who took that picture.
Girl, and the worst part is I've lost it, so I must come and replace it and trying to replace it, and they're just like...
But it's not...
It's not make sure... Literally, that's how it happened. And they were like, and now I've graduated with my distinctions, bushy tail thinking that I'm going to be getting a job anyway within the missions or even within our diplomatic corps, but didn't happen in that way. In that time, then they begin this whole entire battle with government because they were like, we can't give you an ID that says male when you're female. Having explained everything to them, but now the problem is that they don't have any provision of how they change that sex marker on their own administratively. It has to have a court, an order of the court.
Okay.
Which we also thought was going to be easy. So it took years for us to get in that very court order because it would be like, 6 to 7 years of litigating from 2011 all the way to 2017 when we won it in December.
Oh, wow. And that has to have truly been hectic. I honestly can't... Hey, Rikki, you have a story and a half.
I know, that's why the question was like, I'm going to try and keep it succinct.
Hey, I'm going to give the people at home a small break. 2 minutes, guys. Like you see how gender roles are a lot. You see how things are different between all of us. Me also, I know I'm very parallel to how Rikki was because I used to cry when they put me in skirts. I'm sorry for telling people, Dad, but it's the truth. And please go off and drink water. Think about what it is that you've experienced, that you've seen, and then consider if maybe we've all been led down the wrong path in terms of what men and women are supposed to do. And we'll be right back on SECHABA. Are you listening? Bacholo, gentlemen and ladies,
human.
Everybody else who identifies by a different pronoun, because from our previous segment, I actually really appreciated what you said about what I am. It's not as simple as who I am. Yes, but what am I? I identify as a woman. I'm going to say, TK, you identify as a man.
And a husband.
Okay, he identifies as a man and a husband, and Rikki is here with us identifying as a woman
who is transgender.
But here's the funny thing. When Rikki was younger, she wanted to wear the clothes I was being forced into. When I was younger, I wanted to wear Rikki's clothes. Actually, in fact, I still want to wear Rikki's clothes. Like, Rikki when Rikki was Tshepo, because gentlemen, I don't know if y'all know, y'all have some of the nicest clothes out there.
You can say that again. The one thing that is the most amazing about men's clothing, I'm very sorry, I just need to jump on this. And I learned it because of growing up in the middle of my brothers. Women's shoes have a thinner kind of sole, as if
they don't
they don't absorb any of our weight. Men have these flip-flops of theirs that would have this sponginess in them. That's just
comfy.
I'm just like, why? I was not. And the thing we were talking about, men's clothes always have real pockets. Somebody designs things that look like pockets on women's clothes, and then they're proud of themselves. I'm like, what the hell? Like, where do I put my phone? Where do I put my glass? Like,
Yes,
if I'm nervous,
yes.
where do I put my
It's an
hands?
extra. It's an extra pay more.
I can't.
Basically.
Like, no ways.
And
Oh, it
now-
makes sense why men's clothes are like more expensive, I guess.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
more
Pockets.
fabric. But now we are wondering, because between the three of us, I think we've come to establish that gender doesn't really count at home. So I was raised by a man, and ke ngwana Setswana. I'm not about to fight my father when he tells me that I'm a woman, I should cook and clean. We're not going to have that argument. However, if I'm absolutely honest, guys, there's nothing I hate more than cooking and cleaning. If I could live like the people on Hoarders and it be accepted in society, I really would.
No reprisal.
I would rather go outside and be with the cows or the goats or the... No, for real, I really would. My grandmother used to drag me kicking and screaming back into the house because I was there like, no, I want to be there and help killing the cow, I know. That was
When
me.
I was running from Golesaking, Skermi is where we would cook a traditional kind
Exactly.
of kitchen. That was me. And it's so funny, Mruma, because the incident that for me when I was a kid, I think around 10, 11-ish, that was another U-turn within my family. And it was about these gendered roles,
Yes, yes.
boys and girls. It's exactly what you just said. So Papa had this thing of, he would slaughter whenever his grandchildren. Papa is my grandfather. He's the man I really had as a father. So he had this thing whenever the grandkids come together, whether it's in the middle of the year or whenever,
Yeah.
he just drops one of his goat or sheep.
We have
Yes.
such
Period.
similar
It was a
Fresh
thing,
meat.
yeah. It was that. Oh my goodness, bongwana ke ba teng, ditlogolo tsa ka ba teng, and a sheep or a goat need to fall. But then he often would prefer that the grandchildren, the boys, would come with them. They hold the
Yes.
goat or the sheep, come out too, and then enekena ba tlhaba. So
Yes.
he had that thing then because I came after Tebogo is 2 years older than me, so we would hold the hind legs because that's where often the animal would
kicking.
kick.
Yes.
And he did exactly that. And then I was like, I'm out of here.
That was my favorite
I
part.
was like, I'm out of here. It had done it before, I think, and it's a thing. Papa, if I don't comply, I'm in shit.
Yeah.
I think around that time, it was just before the latter part of my primary schooling, and I was like, nah, it kicked me like so hard, almost I think on my appendix or
it made you think twice.
I was like, no, I let it go. It became a mess, TK, because now it's kicking. Everybody is now in a frenzy. The animal is already bleeding.
Yeah,
Now because of
yeah.
that, blood is all over.
Brain everywhere.
We've prolonged the process
Did
unnecessarily.
not
Thank
want to
God for my
hear. I was
allergies.
like, get out of here now.
Great.
Because we're not going to do this. And this thing of trying to force you to become a boy, I'm here with it. So
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
Skerming. We will bring the fresh meat and then you will cook. So let's
Yes.
finish. And
Yes.
immediately then there was order. Then the boys started, one came in and pegged in and they closed. And I left.
amen.
And I was like, okay, I could do this.
Yes,
I'm all right.
yes.
But even that being said, I love to cook. Like, that's it to this day. It's one of the most therapeutic things for me
I'm
personally.
coming to your house.
Any day. I love to host
Okay,
as well.
I
And I'm
will-
such a
Location.
feeder.
I'll be
and I'm
right
such a
there.
feeder.
Drop
Oh, goodness.
location.
I need like 10
only thing
kg.
is
I
we
will
would
not
have to do a
leave.
battering of Africans because I don't do dishes.
I'll do the dishes.
I'll do
It's
the
fine.
dishes.
I
too.
don't
For
do
food.
dishes. I will cook you a beautiful
I'll even
storm.
sweep. I'll even sweep and
Thank
mop.
you. We
I'll
got
be
a
out
deal.
there.
We got a
Kale
deal.
hello last one.
It
Cleaning
is
your
a
up.
deal.
For-
I can
for food,
cook
I'll do
like
whatever.
7 times in a day without any stress. Because I remember in varsity, I lived with my besties, Tumisang and Lomi. They're still my besties even now. And we all had our different roles. So the other two, like you, didn't like to cook.
Yeah.
Tumi a little bit, but she was always like, nah, if Tapali thing, then there's no need even to be bothering because we'll have
I
good
like
food.
Tumi.
And then Tumi loved to clean. So for her, doing dishes, cleaning the house itself, absolutely her fave. Lomi loves cleanliness and freshness. So things like laundry, that was Lomi dealing with our laundry. She knows how to
Yeah.
sort your colors out so that then nothing seeps into other colors and messes
I need
things.
to live with your friends,
She
guys.
knows how to style. So our home was just one of those. We left off campus like from first year up until final year. And we lived a bit of a distance from campus. So we just lived like we were just these young professionals because of just how we just had a functional system. So there was the one who loves to cook, and then there's the one who loves to clean, and then there's the other one who likes to tidy things up nicely.
Yeah,
so
just keep the house
looking amazing, very homely. That was me. So making sure that it was nice. So I learned very early on as well that much as I'm a girl who likes to cook, I'm not a girl who likes to clean dishes. Like I just I can avoid them for days and then they pile up. So the very anxiety at the beginning of doing them, it gets worse because then I've been avoiding it and then they pile up in the sink.
Oh, avoidant behavior.
Okay, so you said something about allergies earlier. Is it safe to say you also preferred being inside? Did you not like the cows?
No, like Ricky mentioned, right? It's a thing of, boys must be doing this. For us, right? The women would be now doing the intestines after we slaughter.
Yes.
They're now doing the cooking.
That smelly part.
Yeah,
right?
that fresh liver.
And
I will do it tender.
Your elders will look at you like it's a taboo to say, I don't want to slaughter this. I don't want to see blood. I don't want to see blood.
You're squirmish.
Wow.
I might even pass out. I don't want to see blood. So my granddad was like, no. You must go hold the cow. This is not a goat. This is not a sheep. This is a cow.
It's
The
a
whole entire cow.
Yes.
Moo.
Yeah,
Often very wild nyana as well.
I'm like, no,
I don't think they're always so docile. I don't think they're always
No,
docile.
they mean mug
playing
you.
with the hide. I'm holding the legs, but I didn't know that I was allergic to fur. I didn't know.
Oh, crap.
So I then rub my eyes. I go blind. This man did not forgive himself.
I'm
And
not
it was
laughing.
Christmas. Imagine spending
Everybody
Christmas.
is waiting.
Everyone
as
else is
well
dancing and you're there. Why? Because you chose to be a man.
a man. Yeah.
To be a man. To
Yes.
say what a man
Really?
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a cousin sister who was so eager to want and come help, but no, that's
She's
not
not
what women, no, that's not what women do. Women belong in the kitchen. I don't like the statement that women belong in the. Who says that? How did we get there?
Who determined that? Actually,
Exactly.
That is a very good question. Ricky, do you know whose idea this was?
my goodness.
No, I know that the Bible says
Yeah. There was
God
an Adam,
made Adam and Eve.
and then there was an Eve.
But I don't remember the Bible specifically saying Eve's job was to cook and clean. Adam's job was to provide. It just said, take care of this land.
Yep.
You two together.
Yep.
So, I don't know.
That's
Did
why
I
you could
miss
find
a
the
Bible
verse
verse?
I think you
somewhere?
could have.
There's a point where when they're exiled out of the Garden of Eden, in Genesis 3, God says to them, you woman, you will hate the offspring of the snake and the snake will hate your offspring. The offspring of the woman will crush the head of the snake and the snake's offspring will bite the heel of the offspring of the female. Now, you woman, your offspring will not come to you easily. They will come with labor. And you men must go and labor the land in order for you to live by the sweat of your face.
Okay.
If you remember where they often say, it comes from that biblical reference that Adam must go and hammer the land.
That's a fair
Eve must go labor to bring Cain and Abel onto earth. And then it became this whole entire structure that then was sustained, I guess.
Okay, fine. That's a
And
fair
they keep
point.
on reinforcing it.
There's a verse I definitely missed.
But there was no kitchen for Eve.
Exactly.
There was no kitchen
Eve didn't
for
have
Eve.
to work.
No.
She
She just had to
why is it
put
all
a
of
baby
us?
on earth. That was all she needed to do. The rest of how food comes to the table, how it gets cooked, God did not say, go and cook it. The man must go and find the meat and then you must come and
Those
cook
were
it.
not
No.
the rules,
It just said, when I go and labor the land, only she will labor to bring a human being on earth. It shall be a painful experience. Because our birth is the most horrible experience than other animals. Like
This is
literally
also why
for
I don't
us.
want kids.
It
Because
is
it's
Don't
the
you think?
idea is thoroughly disturbing. First of all, no, guys, wait.
truth.
First of all, what you're saying to me is that I must be comfortable with carrying at least an extra bag of sugar.
Yes,
Bare minimum.
like a 2.5.
Here, by
Have you
itself.
just held
That's
it
the
like
first thing.
this for like 5 minutes and felt what happens to your
My guy.
arms?
Secondly, I must be okay with eating anything and everything this alien wants. It's not about what I want.
You're hearing that, men?
No,
Your male privilege.
I don't get
Check
to
it.
have tomatoes because tomatoes are good for me.
Yeah.
No, I want tomatoes because the baby wants tomatoes.
Yeah.
I want chicken.
And then all of a sudden
because
as
it
well,
wants
that baby doesn't want what you want. So now you're up in there just trying to have your yogurt, and it's just like, ew, what is this? And then
No,
it
guys.
must come out.
Then on top of that, I must be in pain for anything from 3 to 48 to 72 hours and have
Your feet.
Toying with your life.
Your
Please
feet must
forgive
swell.
me for those of you who don't really like biology. Y'all want me to literally have my vagina torn over a child.
For a human to
Nah,
arrive
guys.
on earth.
But-
somebody will say, look at
But
you
I'm
being
liking this
a
conversation.
very godly vessel. You know that
I am liking this conversation.
Why
You know
so?
why?
Yeah.
Because this is a contrast
Yes.
of what other women
Okay.
aspire to be.
Yes.
Because what you're saying you do not want to experience,
Yeah.
someone who gladly say, I would want.
I sit here as one who wishes would be able to carry her only child, and I will
Please
not.
feel
Yeah.
free to carry for
I
me.
will never be able to carry my own child. I'm supposed to have my babies through surrogacy. It's a very lengthy process that's costly.
Is that even allowed here?
You can have a surrogate, in
Oh.
Botswana, but
Okay.
the law is still
Hey,
a bit.
I have options.
There's a bit of options.
Okay.
So it's that exactly what TK is saying on how the experience of womanhood is so diverse, and it's so unique for each and every single
Yes.
woman, because people often, and it's why I think I'm loving the conversation we're having, because there was this also impugned idea of my own transitioning into becoming a woman, especially from other people that I happen to be with romantically, around what, if you're transitioning to become a woman, then I'm expecting you should do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and you're like,
Oh, they put the stereotypes on you. Now you must also be in the kitchen.
that was my ex-husband.
I mean, you
of-
like
of
being in the kitchen,
for
but
10 years, and it was that struggle. I had to teach a person to have to cook. I had to teach a person to be able to just tidy up after himself, because he grew up in a system where the father did not get expected to do much.
Was he
So-
learning though?
Yeah, he was learning. No,
Okay.
he definitely was learning. But it's a thing that you are forever battling with somebody's nature versus nature kind of conversation.
You know, you struck a nerve there.
Do you know something about this, bro?
I live it every day.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Wait.
I want to
Who's doing
hear
the cooking and cleaning at home?
I want to hear this.
No, like being raised in a traditional, family where you just see things happening a certain way,
Yeah.
you then subconsciously and even consciously expect it to be that.
Yeah.
When I met my wife,
Yeah.
I was like, listen, I want to have a kid by 25. I want
Aren't you
you.
27?
I'm 27 now. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No kid
Just
for the next
checking,
10 years,
just
guys.
checking.
10 years. And then I was like, you'll be in the kitchen. You'll be cooking. These are my favorite meals.
Yeah. This is how
I've been in
left
Botswana.
them-
I've been in Botswana for 2 years, Ricky.
Oh my
I can
word.
count using all my fingers and toes how many times my wife has cooked.
Yeah.
And
He
I'm okay
always
with it.
says he's the one that cooks
I'm
his
okay
meals.
with
I'm
it.
always surprised.
Because there's this thing of learning. It's not. It's
Yes.
unlearning a bad
Exactly.
behavior to
And then
learn
learning
something.
anew.
To also compromise for
Yeah.
to fit another person's perspective as well. Because I might not know much about Ricky.
Yeah.
But am I willing to learn? That's
Yeah,
why I was asking that.
Exactly.
Was he willing
Was
to
he
learn?
willing to learn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think men have this strong perception
Yeah,
of
that-
this is not manly. This is not. Remember when we were talking and I said, if I wasn't married, people would then say, I'm trying to please her. I'm trying to. But now I'm married to her. This is forever, guys. I don't need.
Hello.
I could just.
Forever, yeah,
I could just
number
stay at home, legs on the table, and be like, baby, go into the kitchen.
Yes.
I paid cows.
Yep.
And I don't like this
Yeah,
thing.
they
Comes with that.
Yes, I paid cows.
I was a marriage homie. There's
No,
an expectation.
my thing is, I
that
can't actually
I
see
paid cows
TK
for
doing
you.
that.
I can't. I'm
Such a nice
soft,
guy. I'm
guys.
like,
To say that statement.
Don't expose me like this. Now my wife will be watching and she'll be
I
like,
take it back, ladies.
I can-
Mamu Hita is a great person. Please don't go chasing her down. Yo, buddy.
But Ricky, you
Yeah.
also in your experience, right? You mentioned how even Morongwa also mentioned how you were forced
Yeah.
into fitting certain stereotypes of
Yeah.
what a boy and a girl should be doing.
yeah.
So is it safe to say then because I'm trying to understand also to speak on behalf of some of the men out
Yeah,
there that I've
absolutely.
seen who've come for counseling, they will then say, no, this is what I was taught, this is what I was made to do.
Yeah.
But we're seeing two different people from two different walks of life
Yeah.
who didn't fall into the social norms of wearing skirts
Yeah.
and wearing
Wearing
suits and ties to
Oh my
church. So can we then safely say from your lived experience that it is somehow incorrect to say that your lived experience, like your forced principles, will define you for life? Or is there a way of changing it? Maybe through counseling? Because you also mentioned that you had to go.
Did, yeah.
Was that because...
I still maintain even counseling proudly to this day. Yeah.
Yes.
I think I really encourage everybody to just seek therapy, not because you're dealing with issues, but just to navigate life, because it's also not everybody who has the best of friends that they say I can trust, I can talk to, or a spouse that they know I've got my partner for life next to me that I know I can purge anything onto and offload. So there need to be that space that you feel safe, a space that allows you to really listen to your own thoughts and to be able to process and to unpack them and to continuously do self-work, guys. Like, people just need to do self-work because I feel like there's a lot of people we've not dealt with things that life throws at us, and you find that out when you are with people in an intimate sense, where, like you just said, Tiki, rightly so, where that instant reactions to certain triggers, they don't even realize that those are triggers that have not been dealt with. And how do you deal with those triggers so that then you can also be a great partner to other people, you can be a great friend to other people, you can be a great sibling to your own family. So it's that, and I still do. So I do believe definitely that with willingness on an individual basis, people are able to shift those kind of value systems that they were raised with, the belief systems that they were raised with, to not necessarily discard them, but to open themselves up to be able to do what you just said, to also understand others' perspectives, others' background, others' experiences that have molded them. In being able to accept that we are coming from two different worlds. If I put it in an example with when I met my husband then in 2014, the thing was he's West African, I'm Southern African, and Francophone, Anglophone for me. It was a lot of differences that we came with. And then obviously he was born a cisgender male. A cisgender person is somebody who is non-trans. So anybody who feels that sense of gender is aligned with the sex that they were assigned at birth, we just categorize them as cisgender people. So it's not nice to call them non-trans people. So there had to be a term that was an antonym. Cisgender. Yes, you are cisgender for having identified as a girl but having been raised as one. So there's that cis is on the one side, and then trans means opposite. So where you experience your sex on the opposite side of where it's been placed at birth.
All right.
So it was that. He's cisgender, I'm transgender, and it was just like, oh my goodness, I have this thing that I don't want to gender my children because then I know how violent and how incorrect gender can be in and of itself. So it was those kind of things that even when we started talking about how we're going to build a family, we were contesting those for 2 years when we were engaged, because we were engaged for 2 years before getting married. And it was that contestation of how I want to raise children, because I have a fear of conferring the wrong gender on a child. Because I know the violence of it. I know the difficulty of having to go and transition from something that was impugned on you, that you didn't consent to, but somehow people expect you to live to it. So it was that, and having to continuously also debate the thing of, you're a woman, and then my husband expected that I was dropping my surname Kgositau to take on his surname Kanza.
That's actually also another thing.
I couldn't.
Dear sir, who's
will
going to marry
never.
me?
Hello, thank you.
We
if we do you a favor, we'll hyphenate.
Okay, maybe hyphenate.
Yeah, that's
to include other kids, definitely.
Yeah.
We like
so,
TK.
hello. The kind of man that the world must continue to raise, please.
Please,
because
guys,
it's necessary to have those kind of conversations. And I do believe, having from experience, that when people are willing, TK, the conversation can happen where we are able to meet each other halfway. Or, because it's not always a 50-50. I mean, we often will talk about equality in the home. There's no such thing as equality. If anything, you can aspire for equity. That's where we can think about equity in that.
And what is equity?
Equity is looking at the percentage of contribution versus ability, and then also awarding what is needed in accordance to the need. Not that we're going to give Morunga and TK the same amount, but then TK maybe just needs 20 rand and then Morunga needs 150 for the need that Morunga has. So in order to meet and actualize at the same level. So if, for instance, let's say this, bringing it into laws or into legal terms, it's equity is around making sure that all people have access to marriage. So others will call it marriage equality, global they call it, but that's what equity looks like. It's just making sure that the laws
can't say no
apply
to some
for anybody
people.
who wants to get married in whatever form.
Equally.
Yeah.
You've married your wife, I married my husband. If, for instance, I'm just making a hypothetical statement. If Morongwe wants to marry a woman, for Morongwe to be able to, without having to start going to a court, for instance. So equality oftentimes denotes giving equal to everybody.
So you get 50-50.
50-50.
But
But
people
somebody
start
else
off
does
with
not need a
100.
50.
Yeah,
Somebody needs
yeah.
a 100. Another that you're giving 100 might need only 20.
Yeah,
So that's now
true.
equality does not necessarily equate that which is a need for a person. So
Yeah.
I'm often for equity and looking at what do you have and what can you contribute that does not cripple you, for instance. So equity in the homestead, within a family homestead, would be around, if I'm earning 20,000, my husband is earning 50,000, and knowing that we're not all going to be paying the same amount for everything in the house, because the 50-50 thing that people at times run with will make you believe that no, if at all
not going
the
to
mortgage
work.
of this house is 10,000, it means there will be a 5,000 coming from TK, 5,000 coming from his wife. At times, the wife does not afford, or TK might not afford out of what he earns
Yeah,
to
that
make
five.
that 5.
Yeah.
But out of his contribution, if you look at what that gap is as a percentage of his total, equity will then say, whatever it is that your wife will have paid, if at all it's about 5% of her salary, let you contribute what also is a 5% from your salary, but not necessarily that you're going to match neck to neck.
Yes.
And
yes.
that's the thing. So I learned that in getting into marriage, around how equity actually plays itself out when
Yeah,
you're doing
yeah.
home economics, as I call it.
I'm
Because
funny
then-
always telling
yeah.
people that that's what I also believe in. But the first time I said it, I remember everybody looked at me like,
You're crazy.
what do you mean you don't want equality? And I'm like, but it doesn't make any sense. Because
the
if
problem.
even if in the situation you mentioned, he's earning 50,000, I'm earning 20,000,
Yep.
I still don't like cleaning. I still don't like cooking. He's likely to want to do more of that. I'm likely to go look for a husband that wants to cook, that wants to clean. And therefore, this thing of blanketing equality so that we make sure that no, Moronga can take out 10,000, he can take out 10,000. Today, if he washes the dishes, tomorrow
I'm
she's washing the dishes.
dishes.
No, guys,
doesn't-
where can I fit in?
Yeah.
Where can I contribute? What can I put in
What
with
are
what
my
I
strengths?
have? Exactly.
What are my passions even?
Hey, because I might not like half the things you
Hello,
want me to do,
to do.
but if I can make sure that the outside is swept, the dogs
Hello.
are fed, there's no dog poo out there, and you're in the kitchen, are we not working together
Bingo.
in a marriage?
Bingo. And that's really for me what I feel like. Gender, I do understand it exists, because we had these conversations with people that an innate sense of gender of a person, you feel it.
Yeah.
Little kids often just know, I'm a boy, I'm a girl. Like when you ask me at 3-4 years, I would tell you I'm a girl. Like it's those kind of things. So for me, it's the understanding that every single kind of gendered individual should be able to also understand that other people might not be gendered in the same way. And as such, when you come into a homestead or into any kind of relationshiping, whether it's your friendships or intimate relationships, it's always about what can I, they often ask, what do I bring to the table? What can you bring to the table?
I don't
and
like
not
that
what,
question.
what
Yeah,
we're
that question is the
expecting
worst
you to
I
question
bring
bring the
ever.
table.
Somebody the other day
What
on the
did he
show,
say?
I bring
what
the
is it? The
table.
ultimatum South Africa. This girl Kanya says, I am the table. She was being asked, she's like,
Amen.
honey, forget about the stereotype that what do I bring to the table? I am the table. So what are you bringing to the table? Look at that. I was like,
Because it also comes across
Hella.
as a thing of trying to put down someone because
Exactly.
it's
They
like
don't
why
fit in a
are
box.
you because they're not fitting into maybe what you expected.
Yep.
If someone is not fitting your expectations, communication.
Yeah.
Like, okay, where are we falling short?
Yeah.
How can we make it better?
What am I expecting that I'm not meeting? Yeah.
Yes.
So
This
that's
is
the thing.
why.
Yes.
This is why we like TK.
We need more men like that in this
yeah,
world.
mothers and
Thank
fathers
you.
at home. If you haven't yet started a family, please consider that when you have a son. You want to raise them to not necessarily consider that their masculinity matters more than the next person's femininity, or even the next person's masculinity, because that happens as well. And then at the same time, they should not be afraid to understand that some people are not masculine at all. They're not feminine at all. They don't fall into either box, and that's okay. You know, we're all just people. You cut me, I bleed red. You cut her, she bleeds red. You cut him, he bleeds red. But guys, we're having so much fun here. I need to just ask you to go. Patankakwa. We're drinking some more water, and then we'll be back on SECHABA.
Yep.
Are you listening?
Yep.
Are you?
Hi again. We are doing our final segment today. I'm kind of sad because, I've been able to share all these dark, twisted things that I'm not allowed to share in front of my own. No, for real. There's a time I said to my mom, Mama, I don't want kids. I don't want to get married. I swear my mom nearly died. I swear I nearly gave her a heart attack in that moment. My father was very happy. He was like, yes, she's not going to do it. I'm not going to lose my only child. But my mom was like, no, you're never going to have that joy of carrying a baby. You're never going to know what it's like to be a partner to somebody. You can't die alone.
Because they're also looking forward to you being Mrs. So-and-so.
But guys, let me tell you the truth. Okay? I get it. It's a lot of work when you get to the midirong and you're there running around, having to do all the work. But guess what? Ain't nobody asking me too many questions. Nobody's going to say anything if I walk that side with a savannah because I'm not somebody's wife. And I really appreciate that freedom. No, this is how I know even when I get married, I want to hyphenate because I like the freedom. I want to be able to say to some people, no, please don't judge me by my husband's surname.
Hello.
You know?
Hello.
And then at the same time, when my children get married, I get to say to them, no, take Mosetli as your name.
Yeah.
Make it your third, your fourth, your fifth name so that we carry that lineage. Sort of like my great-grandfather did for my grandfather. He gave them his surname as their first names. And unfortunately, at some point, we decided, no, we're just keeping the surname. But now I want to bring that back. Because, no, guys, this thing of I have to follow this specific set. I'm 34.
Hello.
Children are going to pala very quickly. Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, looking to close that chapter.
But at the same time, am I not an accomplished person? Is my father not proud that I graduated? Am I not driving? Do I not have a job?
Are you not carrying the Mosetli name
Am I
forward
not carrying the
now?
Mosetli
Look where we
name?
are, the airwaves that the name gets to travel
So why
on.
is it that the only way it's important is if I get married or if I have children?
You know, you're reminding me of a couple of battles actually that I've had, one in marriage and then one in the church around these gendered roles. But let me start off with the one, because in marriage, one of the things that for me was difficult, the first 2 years of the marriage, it was a battle with my husband, because then he had expected that immediately that we are married, I would just go and drop my name and then take on his. And the thing that we don't talk about for women specifically is when we lose our maiden names, an identity of ours dies.
Yeah.
A legacy of our own dies, like you saying, and we were talking now that you're carrying the Mosetli name now. I continue to raise the flag very high for the Gositaus. Like if you talk about RICKI Gositau, you go to the Human Rights Council right now in Geneva, they know who you're talking about. You go to the UN headquarters in New York, they know who you're talking about. You go to the SADC Parliamentary Forum, they know who RICKI Gositau is. So I've done a lot in terms of just building myself as a brand.
Yes.
That to imagine having to let go of all of that for another person because it's expected of me.
Yeah. And you
It's
don't
the
have a
most
choice.
unfair thing that I've seen happen to a lot of women, where right now if you Google me, it's very easy to you go and Google me or YouTube search me, my name just appears.
Yeah.
The minute I change into a RICKI Metsi,
We don't know
RICKI
you
Gositau
anymore.
no longer exists.
Yeah.
So it's as if there's an expectation that women must die to themselves in order to appease a system that says we must become somebody else's wife and become their property that then they get to
We
pass a
belong
name
to
on
another
to, and then
family.
you pass that name down to their children. My ex-husband and I had that agreement that we would have a hyphenated surname for the children, which would then sound like my surname, because mine was Gositau Kanza. So the children would have been Gositau Kanzas as well. So for me, I still carry that same exact wish, because then the Gositau name, where it comes from as well, we are very few of us that are in Botswana. So they come from Mahikeng and then they're in Barlong Farms, and it's just like 5 of my mom and her siblings, literally. And then there's us who are now first generation property people on this side.
Yeah, yeah.
It dies if many of us who are the girls in the family continuously let go of it.
Yeah,
we
that's
are
very
not
true.
advancing the name here. The very Tau, who is our great grandfather, and for me, I'm proud of that lineage. And it's not to say that I wouldn't be able to consider taking another person's name in future when I get remarried. I definitely will still do that hyphenation, however, but as an equal partner in the workspace where I've been an executive since I was like 25, and my first executive deployment was with Gender Dynamics in Cape Town. And I've seen it play itself out in the boardroom where men will mansplain certain things to you.
Yeah.
Men in the boardroom will undermine you by taking your ideas and making them look like they are theirs. Or when you have made a contribution, it being overlooked. But when he says the same thing you just said, it sounds like,
wow.
woo!
Leadership. Come on, my guy.
But then you're
yes.
sitting, then you're like, hold up.
I
That's
just
my
said that.
idea.
But then
and
if
I just
you say
said
that, you're
it.
crazy.
Hello. You're
Yes.
sensitive. You're emotional. Women are led by the
So
hormones.
teamwork.
No, but
men are focused. They are decisive. But now we're so emotional.
Before our fearless coordinator behind the cameras there tells us we're running out of time.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you, Ricky, you touched on how you experienced from when you were 25, you were in the exec. Not looking at 50 years back, when policies were being implemented for women, and not to specifically look at Botswana, but just to say in the broader general,
Absolutely.
Botswana included. In the past 5 years, do you think there's been progress in trying to tackle these gender roles, these gender norms, societal norms of what is a woman, what is a man? Do you think there has been any progress?
Quite a lot of developments. We might categorize it as progress as well. But I think in the last 5 years, let me put it that way, I will start from home and then go broader. Look at our new police commissioner. Isn't that she just broke this glass ceiling within a very male-centric industry and field in policing and law enforcement. And then you look at how women like Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, who is now the WHO Regional Director for Africa, the first Motswana to hold that kind of a position, who is a woman, Nohal. Boema Sokhoma became, Her Excellency Boema Sokhoma became the Secretary General of the SADC PF. First woman to become Secretary General of the SADC PF. Mostly presidents are men, isn't it?
Yes.
Most parliamentarians, men. Most MPs, most ministers, men.
Very
And she
male-centric
broke that. And it was some couple of years when she broke that ceiling as well. And then you go even broader. You're looking at, for instance, people like Caster Semenya right now. What Caster is doing for women in their diversity. Her book, which I've just started reading, Raised to Become Myself, is the most incredible read of somebody who just comes from humble beginnings, raised as a girl who ultimately grows up to just don't understand why, like you say, Murunga, why is my body behaving in the way that it is?
It's not
Unrelated to
doing
my
what I should
choices
do.
or anything I've done to it, but why is my body this different? And having to own up the space at this point in time where currently CASTA continuously is challenging these international regulations that want to reduce the eliteness of these elite athletes, which is a direct targeting of women and bodies that ideally are born so differently. And I think in so doing has challenged these gender stereotypes of what a woman should look like, even if she's an athlete, because there's no standard for it. You might be flat-chested, another one might still have a full-on D-cup. Like there's no mold that we all walk through. And like we're sitting here, listen to the kind of narrative and conversation that Morwe and I have about our journey of womanhood. And it's those kind of spaces that for me, I feel like we've seen a lot of movement. We have seen a lot of shift. In the last 5 years, we experienced COVID. And one of the things that's been really incredible was seeing how the countries that were led by women prime ministers and presidents did very incredibly well again in comparison to those that were led by men. Because nature, exactly, that nurture that women have is what influences the way they lead. It influences the policies that women design that are often very collegial, that are often very community-centric, and much more sort of collegial instead of militant or militarized, how mostly you saw the men-led countries were very military in terms of their way of public control and enforcing some of these health protocols in the time. Whereas places like where Jacinta was Prime Minister in New Zealand, you look at Taiwan, you look at Germany itself, they fared beautifully when it came to controlling the spread and incidence of the COVID virus. Whereas where we saw men were leading, they thought that using the arm of the armed forces and the law enforcement was going to be what will control COVID. Not necessarily.
No, it just scared us, guys.
You need to talk how women or mothers know how to talk to children at times, how we know how to heal a little boo-boo when they have knocked against the table. It's the kind of ethos of women's leadership that I have seen in the last 5 years that I feel like have really shown us that no, this thing of looking at women as being incapacitated by their feeling and their emotional state is actually not a weakness. It's actually a strength. And what we saw was because of a pandemic of this nature that showed us that actually women are better at this. And as such, it means we can even take that and now extend it to things such as your HIV policies, for instance, sexual and reproductive health and rights policy. Women are better at designing those in a way that really are very plural and inclusive and accommodating of many other people. So for me, I think there's been quite a lot of those kind of signifiers of change that women are beginning to take up space. 2019 is how many years ago? TK, count for me. Is it exactly
I wasn't good in math.
Okay, indeed. Then I'm correct. I mean, Miss Universe 2019, a black girl with nappy hair that just had hair that just looks like yours, TK.
My hair's nappy.
She won a whole entire Miss Universe crown. And then by setting the standard to say, take up space.
Miss Alabama is plus size. Miss Alabama 2024 is a gorgeous plus size lady. So like, yes, we're moving.
Hello.
We are.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there.
Now I'm just going to then pose this last question from me, which is to our young women that are out there listening. You know, you mentioned a few names of people who've, you know, broken barriers. Absolutely. You know, there's also those women who are coming from, let's say, less fortunate conditions where they might not have the accessibility to breaking these barriers. How can they also break through these norms and these roles that they're feeling like are being shoved down their throats? Like, what advice from your advocacy?
In my experiences as well, antidotes I've learned. It's I think bravery at the core of it, to stand in your truth. Because many a times, I think as women, there's this fear to have to just vocalize our feelings, our thoughts, our ideas, our wishes, our wants, our demands even at times, and saying, this is what I will not take, this is what I will take. And it starts from that place individually and internally first of having to say, I'm going to stand in my truth. I'm not going to be intimidated to have to be submissive. I'm not going to be intimidated to have to be more silent. I'm not going to be intimidated to be more feminine and not be robust just because I'm being told you are being too masculine now, tone it down. But just to take up space wherever you happen to be, to just be able to really stomp your position and say, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, this is what I believe, this is what I don't believe in. And I think ideally is to continuously do what I've learned with the circle of women that I've had in my life, my besties, my mother herself, my sister cousin Bingoto, who we call each other twin. It's to be able to know that indeed I am my sister's keeper. We live in a world, when we're talking about gender norms right now, that has made us as women to be competitors and not to be complementers. To the point where we walk into spaces and it's impossible for us to say to another woman, you look beautiful, well done. Because masculinity and patriarchy has designed the world in such a way that they enjoy and relish us having to get into cat fights. So to turn it by being my sister's keeper, be a queen who's able to fix another queen's crown or tiara.
And also be willing to also
receive that. Exactly. So there's a lot of individual kind of letting go of having to be boxed in that one needs to do first in order to be able to exist within the world that we're in order for them to be able to actualize in whatever that they want to become. But it takes bravery, because it does not come with timidity. It cannot happen when you silently somewhere, you don't vocalize your thoughts. No, it takes bravery to be able to say, even if there are reprisals, I will stand in my truth.
Yeah. Wow, guys. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today. I don't.
Can't we have season 2?
Somebody out there, please feel free to give us a season 2, because as it turns out, these conversations are very important. And I think, Ricky, you're right. I would not be where I am today if I wasn't brave.
Yeah.
And it's not as simple as being brave enough to say, oh, Papa, I don't want to wear a skirt, or Mama, I don't want to get married. But there was also a bravery about going into the financial world as a woman, learning that the numbers game is a man's game. And therefore, wherever I go, there'll always be some man who thinks he's better than me, who thinks he's smarter than me.
Yep.
And then similarly, there's other spaces where I've been where the older ladies intentionally don't like me because I don't fit into that box. I won't wear makeup, that's a problem. I won't wear skirts, that's a problem. I don't like handbags, that's a problem. And then again, I go to my guy friends and it's, ish, Mo, you're like the guys. Kana, you drive like such a man. You're not girly at all.
You're driving.
I've
It's like,
learned
but
to
that
take
hurts,
the compliment
dude.
that I drive like a man. I'm like, yeah, it means I'm a good driver. Thank you. If that's their way of complimenting my driving, then I'll
But
take
at the
it.
same time, it means they forget that I'm feminine because that little jab, it's a little harder than it should be, sir. Like, I am
take
kind of
that.
soft. Like,
But I'm
still
supposed to be
feminine.
reckoned with.
Exactly. But either way, I've had to be brave. Whether or not I liked it, every step I've taken to get here has required bravery.
Yeah.
I mean, my team would not know this, but I walk in here nervous AF. Yeah, you don't know this,
don't
but it's
see it.
very, very true.
Yeah.
However, I have to be brave. I have to be brave to get my job done. I have to be brave to have a conversation with somebody I don't know. I have to be brave to sit
Establish
comfortably.
rapport.
Yes, but also to sit comfortably with TK, who's my colleague, and show the world this is how we are in the office. When people come see us, we're young, we're stupid. It's easy for people to take advantage of that. But now we're trying to show ourselves, and we have to
What
be brave.
more we made of?
Yeah, so guys, go out there, be brave, understand that gender is a social construct. So please remember when you step outside tomorrow, who are you? What are you? Where do you fit in this society? What can you contribute with what you have today? And let's work together and pambeni, because SECHABA, we must start listening. Okay? I don't want to ask if you're listening anymore, SECHABA. We have to start listening. It's time, guys. We'll catch you another day, but I've taken too much of your time today. Yeah, somebody please cut so that I can let my guests go.
Good.